Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. My name is DJ Wooldridge, and I'm here with Roxy Striar to discuss the latest episode of WandaVision. That is WandaVision, Episode 6. All new Halloween Spooktacular. Disturbances on Halloween separate Wanda from Vision, who looks into anomalous activity in Westview. So
that was their most accurate description yet.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. So I'm going to be on, and this episode was directed by Matt Shackman and written by Chuck Hayward and Peter Cameron. Now, Roxy, before we dive in, I got to be honest. I think right off the jump, I had a little bit of a beef with this episode.
Ooh, what was it?
Well, because the intro, we go right into the intro. And yeah. I believe last week we were very much in the 80s. And so I was ready like, ooh, we're entering the 90s. And then they do this intro. I'm like, I don't even know what we're homaging. And I was watching with my wife and she's like, oh, this is like Malcolm in the Middle. And I'm like, wait, did we skip the 90s? That's my decade. Like I didn't watch Malcolm in the Middle or Everybody Hates Chris or any of that. That's in that like window where I guess I wasn't watching sitcoms. But my heyday was Family Matters, Full House, Step by Step, Boy Meets World. And we just skip all that shit? Are you kidding me?
You're not even talking about Friends, Seinfeld. Like, I mean, come on. This is that's when. This is that. We are there. DJ, I felt the same thing. And I was trying to theorize on this. So I have many, none of these make sense, but I was like, why would they do that? Why? Yes. Okay. So maybe we go back in time at some point.
Oh.
We have to go back to the 90s. That's theory.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't think that the tone of the 90s fit this at all, which I don't understand why this exact episode couldn't have actually been in the 90s.
Yeah.
But okay. Maybe the creators have vendetta against the 90s. Like I was sitting there thinking that too, because when we saw the intro, I was expecting this to be like a Boy Meets World style. And then it was like my hair, whatever it was. And I Malcolm in the Middle, it's a good reference here. And I was just thinking like, I don't know why they did that. I think mine are the only theories. Yeah.
Here's the other thing, like thinking back to the original, because you think, okay, so maybe it's a pacing thing, right? Like they needed to get through the sitcom bit, I guess, quicker. But then it's like the first two episodes were the 60s and the 70s, which weren't tangibly that different as far as the way they depicted it. So it's like, well, couldn't we just made just skip to the 70s and done that bit then? Like it's a weird omission. Maybe they just felt like, wow, the 90s is just the golden era of sitcoms and we can't even touch
way. You're adding theories to my theory.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll accept that theory. I'll accept that 90s are golden. They can't be gold. They don't want to be silver. Okay.
Anyway, so I think, right, I had mixed feelings about this episode, and as I was trying to unpack it, it's like I realized I think that was part of it. We skipped right into a decade of sitcoms that I don't care about, that don't mean anything to me. But let's dive into the meat of the episode. We've got we're building off last week where there's still trouble at home. There's a rift between Wanda and Vision that is growing. Pietro, who is played by Evan Peters, who showed up at the end of last week's episode as the big reveal. Yeah, it kind of exacerbates that tension. Because he's the sitcom guest star. He even says it in the episode, like, I'm here to like create more tension. Of course, this episode is set on Halloween, which leads to an opportunity for them to do fun homemade Halloween versions of their classic Silver Age get-ups. I will say, obviously loved all that. Loved seeing Wanda's classic costume, Vision's classic costume. The little joke about the Vision's costume being a riff on a Mexican wrestler did not go over great in the Wooldridge household. My wife is of a Mexican heritage, so anytime white people are speaking Spanish badly, doesn't play as a very good joke in this home.
I get that.
Yeah.
I didn't think the joke was necessary.
Yeah. It's because then they didn't bother to try and explain Pietro's outfit. Although I love that they went the extra mile and did the hair. I was like, that's dedication. I appreciate it. I'm here for it. So we also we get to spend more time with Wanda and Pietro. They even have a cutaway gag with them in Halloween in Sokovia, which people pointed out, and I haven't had a chance to really look at this closely, but people pointed out that it looked like they were their costumes were riffs on Black Widow and Nick Fury respectively in that little flashback cutaway. But we also at like the town square or whatever, they get a chance to sit down and talk. Now that we've had a chance to sit with Evan Peters in this weird WandaVision version of the universe, what do we think about Wanda and Pietro's interactions and their relationship?
Well, I'll answer your question with a question, DJ.
Yes.
Aha. What do you think she meant by she doesn't remember it that way? And she doesn't remember what he's remembering that way. Do you think that we're watching their interactions and that he is not actually, we know it's not actually him because he's recast, but like, do you think that he's actually some kind of a spy, an implant, like something strange because she didn't on purpose bring him here? He's trying to get information out of her. She's saying she doesn't remember things the same way. Or do you think that just like everybody else, she did manifest him coming here? I just am confused on actually what's happening with him.
Agreed. We actually, in the Discord, we have a couple questions about this as well. STS 2884, is Quicksilver really Quicksilver? And Joey says, what's Pietro's whole deal? LOL. What confused me is a couple things. One, he mentions that he was gunned down in the street. And we get a point where Wanda sees him as dead Pietro with bullet holes and everything. And so I was operating under the assumption that she essentially pulled Pietro from the X-Men movies, the Fox X-Men multiverse movies, into this multiverse. But now he's making comments like he has memories of the real Pietro, and that has me concerned that with mystery shows, and I've been kind of talking about this a little bit, with mystery shows, you hope that the writers have a good handle on the mystery. Right. And this is making me wonder if they do. Because, like, how are you going to explain? Did she give somebody else's Pietro's memory? Like, I think you're making this more complicated than you need to.
I don't know that he's on our team.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, go ahead, DJ.
No, that's a really good point, because there's a point later where Darcy's doing the beep boops, right? She's doing the beep boops, and she's like, "Wait, Hayward is," and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if Pietro's like a Hayward Mole."
That's what I think.
But then, how does that square with it being Evan Peters from the Fox movies?
That I don't know. He couldn't get the other Pietro, so he thought that this was like plausible that Wanda would be convinced that she did this. I don't know. Maybe he's a big fan of the Fox movies. They will have some explaining to do, but if he's on our side, it was too foreshadowing that he was like, "You can trust me. I'm your brother. I'm not your husband. I'm not your fan. I'm not the lackeys that you have here. I'm your brother. Talk to me. I don't think what you're doing is wrong. I want to hear from you."
Agreed.
It was just too on the nose for me to believe a word he was saying. And also, if she did manifest this, there's no way she's not bringing back her brother. I think about myself if I'm in this position, right? You think about yourself if you're in this position. If you have somebody really close to you who passes away and you know you can bring them back, like what you did with Vision, you're not recasting them. Not even your deepest self-conscious. Like, you're not doing that.
Well, and again, this went back to the theory that she can't actually bring people back from the dead, which makes the Vision situation unique, which was, we talked about the whole dog bit from last week, which implied that, like, okay, so she didn't bring him back. She pulled him from the multiverse. But now if it's a mole, it's just one of those that, like, for point of context, this actually applies in two cases in this episode. So my wife and I wanted to stay up to watch WandaVision because we both had things to do this morning. So we decided to watch a movie while we waited, and I'd never seen Shutter Island, and she wanted to watch it. And so we did. Spoilers, not great. But
you didn't like it?
Didn't love it. But there's a mystery involved, and once we get to the point of explaining the mystery, the hoops we have to jump through to justify what happens in this movie to make the mystery plausible are insane. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too much. And so if we start getting into, like, well, actually, the Hayward had a mole come in to fake him, and he has parts of Pietro's memories, but not all of them. And he also looks like the Fox guy. It's like, why are we making this so complicated?
So if he's not a mole,
yes,
and Wanda did put him there, when she says that's not how I remember it, do you think that is just further alluding to the fact that she's not fully herself right now?
Or if she's pulling him from the multiverse and he has different memories growing up.
Okay.
But then he wasn't in Sokovia in the X-Men movies.
Yeah. I mean, just because he's being pulled from the multiverse, I guess, doesn't actually mean he's from the X-Men movies.
Also a good point. But again, if you're going through the trouble, if Wanda is going to be a part of the multiverse of madness, and you're going through the trouble of casting Evan Peters, and he's not from those movies, what are you doing?
I don't know. I think Mole is the most likely situation right now, but it could definitely not be that. And then I think we're going to need an explanation of why do they have different memories. Also, I'm not really fully buying this. Why are you doing this? And her saying, all I know is I felt very alone.
Yeah.
Because she's still saying, I don't know what happened. I just felt alone. I still continue to hope that there is something else going on. Obviously, we'll talk about the Agnes of it all in a moment, but yeah. I don't know. I'm starting to question, is there nothing else going on?
Well, that applies to the other way that Shutter Island actually applies to this movie, because that movie also hinges on a woman going hysterical and doing awful things. And they try to flip it to where, like, the guy was the monster. I was like, no, this is good try, but this is another thing that's like, women are crazy. Anyway, moving forward, that's obviously set on Halloween. We actually get to spend more time with the kids in their adolescence, and they not only do they talk to the camera in Malcolm in the Middle style, the kids begin to exhibit their abilities from the comics. Tommy has speed like his uncle, which is perfect timing that the uncle's here to explain that for audiences that may not have remembered Pietro from Age of Ultron. And Billy has mind stuff, like his mind is he's able to mind things. Meanwhile, Vision.
So what did we actually see from him? We only saw him be able to connect with his dad mindness, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So he is that.
That is that. Yes.
Okay.
So, and Vision is exploring the town, and he of course sees some really troubling things, like the lady that's just absent-mindedly trying to like connect the decoration while she's crying, and like you mentioned earlier, he interacts with Agnes a little bit, and he even tries to leave the hex, which doesn't work out great for him. Going back to the idea that he's just Wanda's been dunking Vision's corpse inside this hex this whole time, which isn't great. So let's start with the kids. Danny, from the Discord chat, how do you feel about the portrayal of Wiccan and Speed being Tommy and Billy being their kids?
I thought that these two actors were good little actors. I thought that they fit in well with the story and that they did a good job with that. So, it's hard to find child actors that just kind of fit. I'm still confused when you're mentioning kids. We're asked, how did she manage to get all these kids? Where were they hiding?
Yes.
We know that this is a town with no kids. So now is she able to bring in kids because she needs her kids to have friends? Or is it just for Halloween? I mean, what is with the kids in general?
Yes.
For the children, what's happening with these children? So I like them. I would like to know a little bit more about what they can do, but they're kind of figuring that out. So I like them.
Yeah, it's interesting.
What about you?
I think that bringing up the children thing is interesting because that actually plays into, because that was a question I had when I was watching, like, where were these kids? And then Pietro was like, oh yeah, you had them sleeping. You wanted to minimize the human toll on this whole thing. And so then that leads back to the Pietro question, is like, why would Pietro know that?
Yeah.
And again, it just makes me worry that, like, do the writers have a reason, or are they just throwing stuff out there. I'm
And do you think
concerned.
that was true? Do you think that is what she was doing?
That leads to the other question: is how much control how culpable is Wanda in this? Because if she is responsible for everything, as we've been led to believe, then yes, I would believe that's true. If there is something else going on, then there would be something else going on.
He says he kept the couples together, and he named a few things that, like, how would he know that?
Yeah, I guess.
Do you think that they're gonna just use the twin excuse, like that's what he would have done, so he knows her so well that he knows what she did because that's what he would have done?
Maybe. But the other thing is, since Hayward has all the data of the residents, he's knows that like all the couples are still together, where are the kids, and so he like feeds that to, he feeds that to Pietro, like, hey, blah, 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 blah. But again, I think that's viable, but I hate that because again, why is it Evan Peters then? Like, because then, oh my God, I don't like it. I just don't. If that means they had a guy that looks like the Quicksilver from the Fox movies. And I know that nobody in the universe needs to know about that, but me as an audience member knows about that. And then, so that's just confusing for no reason.
Here's the thing. I always know that there are smarter people than me. And so I haven't figured out how they're going to make this work, but I do have faith that smarter people than me do have connected dots that I have not thought of yet. Yes. And that will be shown to us because the MCU has earned that from me. If that does not happen, bummer.
Yeah, bummer. Yeah, bummer. So the other thing, with this situation, we're going to get into more about like Vision trying to get outside the Hex. With all this, have we actually learned anything new about the Hex? Like, we've learned that the farther you get away from Wanda, the less active people are.
So is that how you interpreted that? The
yes.
people on the edge of town physically cannot move because they are far from her?
Something along those lines was the impression I got.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but I thought it was a little confusing because then when she stops everything,
yes,
I was like, so is she doing that because nobody can see them? Or is that happening because they are further from her? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I will say that whatever. Going back to the conversation with Pietro when she's like, "Oh, you're okay with this, whatever." It's like, man, this is tricky because if this is all Wanda, it's going to be really hard to walk this back because it's like I honestly don't know right now. The show on its own, if just taking the show as a TV show, I cannot explain to you why Monica is so dedicated to helping Wanda, because I would not be. I wouldn't be on Team Hayward because that guy's a dick, but I would be closer to like, yeah, we need to stop her. Like, I don't know if we need to launch a missile at her, but this is bad. This isn't a let's help Wanda. Let's help the rest of the town and then maybe figure out Wanda's stuff later.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, but also keeping in mind that Monica's test results were not looking good. Yeah. We don't know what happened to her in that town.
Yeah, so. We're gonna get into that more because because that's this actually touches with the kids as well, and this is something I meant to mention last week and I didn't. So I think we can all agree that by and large, Marvel movie shows and everything are product. We're being sold a product, and the best of them let us forget that, or are able to distance us from that, and we're able to enjoy them beyond them being a cool product and enjoy them as a story. Like, I think of like a Black Panther, you know what I mean, like something like that. I am having, as the show goes on, I am having trouble thinking of the show beyond. It feels like an excuse to like, hey, we really want to do Young Avengers, and Wiccan and Speed are part of Young Avengers, so we're gonna do this just so they exist. Like, that's it. It feels less about. It just feels like an excuse to get Wiccan and Speed into the MCU, and so that concerns me, and it's making me harder. It's making it harder for me to invest in the show.
Yeah.
So similarly, like Monica, your DNA's been rewritten twice, and it's like if this is how they explain Monica's powers, that's dumb to me because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I honestly haven't even fully gotten to the Monica part not making as much sense because I'm still on. All I can think about is like Wanda motivation, Wanda people being far from her, not working, Vision wanting to out Wanda, trying to get out, them not wanting to help. Like I'm on our core characters.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm still trying to grasp like what is this?
Yeah,
what is this?
Speaking of being into your core characters, let's talk about them. Let's talk about Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy. And I think it sounds like you and I might be on the same page where I kind of check out hard when we cut to them, which is a bummer because I, on paper, like all these characters, but their storyline is very boring. Like it's very not interesting. And it's one thing that the characters within the Hex, which is what they're calling it, act as archetypes because they're supposed to be part of this sitcom world that's Wanda created. The people outside of it don't really have an excuse to they don't behave like people. They behave like mechanisms within this story that we need to get them to do the da-da-da or find out about da-da-da. And so I don't care about.
I do think that Darcy now being sucked into the Hex will be fun.
Oh God, I hope so. I mean, Kat Dennings is a sitcom actress. She was part of Two Broke Girls, and so like maybe that could be cool. I think the more we involve that cast into our main story, it will benefit everybody.
Yeah, because I completely agree with you. It just is so we're in a fun place because I like the sitcom aspect, and then I like the mystery aspect too. And we're there, and then we pull out, and we are expos and button pushing.
Yep.
And so I don't like that as much because it's not as fun. So I don't like it as much.
Yeah.
Because of the fun factor.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, they're not hanging out with our main superheroes. And I just go back to when I think about our CW shows, it's like, what if the computer people and the superhero punchy people never hung out? And it's like, well, I wouldn't want to watch the computer people if I'm being honest.
Do you know that Black Lightning aired this week? I mean, it's not the time for that conversation, but I had no idea. Somebody asked me, and I was like, wow, I didn't even know that was back.
Yeah, in our defense, it's a pandemic. It's hard to keep track of things because I'm the same way. So we get another hint at this engineer that's supposed to help Monica get into the Hex. And so I wanted to ask you, who the hell do you think this person is? Because I will say I had some theories, and then
okay, well, let's hear your theories.
So I think the theories are the same as everybody else. Everybody's like Reed Richards. I don't think if they were able to pull that off, I would be infinitely impressed.
Yeah,
in
of course.
Marvel, because there's no way we don't have casting. There's no way that Mr. Fantastic, there was not a casting announcement prior to him showing up here. Also, a little dubious that he would show up in their Disney Plus show, and it'd be like Spider-Man showing up or like their Wolverine showing up in a Disney Plus show. Like, it's like, oh.
Do you think they could do it like Titans prior to introducing whatever Game of Thrones actor that was for Batman, having the back of his head for a minute? Like
they could, and that would suck.
Okay.
that would suck. The other thing that I thought was much more likely was I thought about Riri Williams, who is Ironheart in the comics, who is supposed to be smart enough to reverse engineer Tony's stuff and create her own armor. However, Monica very specifically says in this episode, "My guy on the ridge." So unless she's just being euphemistic or doesn't know, it's a dude. It's a guy. So the only other one that makes sense to me is Rhodey. But if you've got everybody in their net speculating it's Reed Richards, no offense to Don Cheadle, who's incredible, and no offense to Rhodey and War Machine, who's a character I like a lot, everybody's going to be disappointed that it's not Reed Richards.
And keeping in mind that we don't know whether she was talking about Quicksilver, but Elizabeth Olsen said that there's a Luke Skywalker level cameo.
By the way, can I tell you who because we talked about last week, and you and I had a hard time figuring out who that would, if you take it at that face value about who a Luke Skywalker would be to the MCU, you and I had trouble like figuring out who that would be in this case. It occurred to me if they introduced, and this makes no sense, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm just trying to think of like who the Luke Skywalker would be. If they introduce the MCU version of Wolverine, that I think Wolverine is such a key Marvel character that would be close to the equivalent of Luke Skywalker showing up.
So you don't think Reed Richards could be that?
It could be, but like Wolverine, it's like there's no way, I can't conceive of a way that we did not hear of even a rumor, even because again, we knew about Evan Peters 18 months ago or however many months ago. Like it'd be amazing. It'd be incredible that they were actually able to pull that off. But I think the reason Luke Skywalker worked is you didn't need to cast him. It's already Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Also, the person, I believe Mark Hamill was on set, but the person actually in the costume was a stunt guy. Like that's something you can, what they did there is something you can pull off. To introduce the MCU.
Hard to pull off, though.
Not easy to pull off. Definitely not. But like, I just can't imagine. What's his face? Like, I can't imagine, like, what would it be? Who's the, why am I blanking on his name? The Office guy, Quiet Place, John Krasinski.
John Krasinski.
Him walking out and being Reed Richards and us of having not heard one word about that before that moment. I just can't fathom it.
Maybe they'll make it Rainn Wilson and he'll come out and be like, sucker.
Well, that's something I wanted to run by you to see what you thought. I think it'd be hilarious if they do all this build up and like Seth Rogen comes out and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, Mike. And he's just an engineer that's a friend of mine, and he's not anybody. Like he's just a dude. He's just an engineer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be funny. And I honestly don't put it back. I don't put it past any of these major franchises to get somebody like that, because people love these franchises who are super nerds and in the industry and just like want to pop in.
Yeah. But do you have like a theory?
Honestly, at this point, I don't. I'm with you that when she said like my guy, I was like, oh, okay, that gives us the first piece of information we've got so far. And then I was like, or does it? And then I try to ask myself, how often do I refer to my girlfriends as guys? Mm-hmm. Like, and it's never.
It's not one time.
And so the answer to that is I've never done that. Like I would be like, hey, you guys, but I wouldn't be like my guy. Yeah. So I think that I don't know how they would pull off Reed. I think that more likely we're going to see Don Cheadle. And I think that I'm not sure what Elizabeth Olsen's talking about.
Yes.
Those are my standing theories.
There you go. So the episode ends with Vision steps outside. He starts coming apart. And last ditch effort to save him, Wanda expands the hex that now essentially includes most of the Sword agents that are at the scene, except Monica, Jimmy, and Hayward, and a couple other lackey dudes.
I thought that was smart. I actually really liked this moment. Because she came out and she warned them, don't F with me or I'll F with you.
Yeah.
And then in this moment, when she's trying to find him, she's trying to get her kids to help her find him. And they see, and her child knows that Vision's at the edge of town and she can't get there in time. She can't whatever. I thought that was really quick thinking of Wanda.
Yeah.
And kind of exactly what she said was going to happen. I don't actually understand what was happening to Vision. Mm-hmm. Was he getting ripped apart because he was leaving this town and he's dead, so he can only be alive in this town? Or can nobody else handle the hex, the actual hex? Mm-hmm. Or is it about getting to the other side? I would like to know a little bit about the science behind this.
Yeah, my impression, I think both those are valid, actually. My impression was that Vision can only exist within the hex. So he was coming undone or trying to be sucked back in because that's the only way he can operate. But I think
anyone who would be at the edge of the hex would not have that? You think specifically Vision because he's dead?
That's a great question, because the impression I got with the conversation with Agnes is nobody can even try and attempt to make that, cross that bridge. But that is good. Could they even make it? Because the only reason Monica got out is because Wanda kicked her out.
Right.
So that's a good.
But she was physically able to get through the hex.
Yeah, but now her DNA is rewritten. I like this too. I will say the one bummer is I'm bummed that Hayward was not sucked in there, because I would be very interested to see where he fits in this sitcom universe.
Yeah.
So I was like, missed opportunity. Fun getting Darcy in there, missed opportunity not having Hayward in there.
Yeah, but I think we have to have him on the outside, because otherwise,
Who's gonna yell at people and be like, I'm the bad guy?
So true. So true. I want to see that outfit that Darcy's going to be wearing.
Yes. Well, I think now we'll be into, I guess, the 2010s. Unless we go back. We're not going back. You and I need to accept that.
What are the 2010s?
I think we're going to be Office, early Modern Family, Parks and Rec, Talk to the Camera,
30 Rock.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
I do too. I just wish we had got the 90s. I would have been fine if we skipped the early 2000s personally, but
How many
whatever.
episodes do we have left?
So this was 6, so we have 3.
There's 9.
Yeah, there's 9 episodes.
Okay. So then where do we go after the 2010s?
I think at some point with the way we're burning it through it, we just become a Marvel show at some point. Like, I'm thinking like the last 2 episodes are just going to be a Marvel show. Maybe. Okay. Maybe, yeah. Especially since you skipped the 90s, you sons of bitches.
Can we talk a little bit about the Agnes part?
Yes.
Am I jumping around too much?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So for all the theories about who she was and if she had control and if she was a bigger bad or if she was, what did you make of this scene? What do you think's actually happening here? And why did she have the wherewithal last time to say, should I take that again? Mm-hmm. But this time, thanks for stopping by, neighbor.
I think, because similarly, Wanda's talking to the neighbor that's dressed up as Frankenstein, and he asks, like, wait, do you need me to do something differently? I think there's some sort of innate, they know they need to please Wanda. And I definitely don't think, this just cements for me, I definitely don't think Agnes is nefarious in any way. I was thinking about it if, with the theories about Mephisto, and again, I just can't imagine Mephisto not showing up without him already being cast. It would be interesting.
But everyone thinks that he's showing up.
Well, here's the thing. I was about ready to throw out last week. I was like, what if Vision is actually Mephisto? And literally, as I was formulating that thought, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I could see a reality where we learn that, Vision is actually going to die. And then if Mephisto does show up, he's like, I took the form of Vision to mess with you. And it's a way to keep Paul Bettany within the MCU, but not being Vision. And the only reason that works for me is I think Paul Bettany would be really good as not only a villain, but as Mephisto. I think he'd do a really good job.
Is there any world in which Evan Peters is Mephisto?
Yes. Yeah, but weird. It's a weird one. That's a weird because not that he's not an amazing actor. It's just that's not how I would see him. But also, I don't know. Roxy, how are we feeling about the show right now? Because my mixed feelings each week get more and more mixed.
Yeah, me too. I keep waiting I loved this show. By episode 3, I loved this show.
Yes.
By episode 4, I was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
By episode 5, I was hopeful.
Yeah.
By episode 6, I'm confused.
Yes.
So that's where we're at.
That's a good arc. That's a good way of describing the arc. And I feel similarly. Because I think we're in this nether realm where the sitcom bit has essentially almost, we're still doing it, but the illusion is essentially broken.
Right.
So, but we're also not revealing any more about the mystery. So it's kind of like we're just in a holding pattern until the sitcom aspect of it isn't really quote unquote fun anymore because we know it's a waking nightmare. But we haven't resolved it. So it's just like, I guess we're just going to wait around until the Vision saves the day. Wanda stops doing this. I don't know what I'm rooting for at this point.
But in all fairness to the show, though, what I will say is that, you know how there's shows that you're like, oh, I have to watch this. And then there's shows that you're like, I really want to watch this.
Yes.
I still really want to watch this show.
Agreed.
When I put it on, I'm like, I enjoy it. I like the performances. It looks awesome. I'm interested to see what happens next. So it's not like watching this show is a drag. Watching this show is dope. I just, in my soul of souls, am like,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let us know in the comments where your Soul of Souls is at. Let us know what you think is going on with Agnes, the kids, Quicksilver. Literally every aspect of the show is a mystery. Let us know what you think about it. Like, subscribe, share, all of that fun stuff. And please tune in at patreon.com/onlystupid answers for our full Only Stupid Answers show discussion, or a podcast on Mondays, wherever podcasts are listened to for free. And we'll see y'all next week.